Alright, ladies and gents, we are testing our new completely portable system. We've got a little light that shines down on us, and we're going to take a little walk through the backyard of my house in my neighborhood here. Still a very safe place to enjoy the freedom we have here in America. We're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming election. We might get a nice pic, do a little live stream of our American flag I've got in the backyard here. Might as well walk past that. We'll share that a little bit. But I am doing a fully, you can see I've kind of got my harness around me here, and we're doing a live stream right now. We're going to talk a little bit about Trump versus Biden, the final 48 hours, and kind of want to get everybody's opinion on what they think so far of this little bit exciting election. I don't know if you can see it behind me there. We're going to try to get a shot. There's the flag we have in the backyard. Can you see it there? There we go. It's up there. There we go. There you go. So that's the flag on my back deck back there, and we fly that all the time. I do have a light on it, as you can kind of tell. That's why it's lit up. But we are going to continue now with a little walk through the neighborhood here. I got to kind of, I've only got one light pointed at me to in front of me that'll kind of give me some perspective on my walk over here. But this is a typical path I take when I'm walking. Actually, a lot of you see me probably more often driving on my lawnmower up to the gas station. So this time we'll walk it. We're not going to get any gas. Maybe we'll get a Gatorade or something from the gas station. But there's a gas station up here that's been here for a number of years. And while we're doing it, we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming election and what you guys all think of the excitement that's kind of coming our way. Tell me what you think. I'm, again, walking live here. I've got a power pack on me and so I've got a little 9-volt battery. It's kind of a, what do they call it, a jet ski battery, if you will. The edge of our, I'm about to get up to the path up here. You see it a little bit as we turn our camera a little sideways, the light corresponding. Here's the path, and I just have a selfie stick and my laptop around my, you guys can see that now, around me with this harness that they sell if you want to kind of do this thing. But this is the Cardinal Cowboy Show Sunday night edition, and we are doing it as we walk the Katy Trail, which is another wonderful little path provided for us with our Recreational and Parks Department. And it comes right up here, and because of all the taxpayers, we have a beautiful park and recreational trail that we can enjoy. So we're gonna tune in here. Tell us, everybody. I'm gonna try to get, I'm doing this live streaming. This is my all-in-one unit here with the laptop, the camera. It's a selfie stick camera. It's actually a full, what they call camcorder, as opposed to a, but that allows us to go into a computer, and then you can put up the graphics as you see there. So we're gonna go out as we walk our path just a little bit, and get on up. We'll talk about the election. What do you guys think about what's coming here? And we've got less than 48 hours now to figure this thing out. As we can see here, I'm walking down the path here. Got our little spotlight on it, on me. Tell us what your thoughts are. Have you seen enough of the ads? Have you seen enough of the bashing back and forth? Is there more you'd like to see? What would you like to see? Who do you think is going to win this thing? Right? Some people say this is one of the most critical elections in the history of our country. Those on the right kind of arguing, you know, they're trying to implement socialism. Those on the left kind of saying, hey, we need to be heard. We need some people to understand our opinion here and realize some of the things we feel have been overlooked. Others argue that the reason they're kind of directing people to feel that way so that they can implement socialism, as they say, back to the other side of it. But we're going to have a decision here to make. There's been about 90 million votes cast already. And I'm going to turn off my hotspot. That might be. But yeah, I'm going with my mobile phone in one hand, laptop strapped around me, my selfie stick holding my camcorder in my right hand with a light dangling from it. And with all of that, we are now almost up to our mobile on the run. This used to be a UGAS, for those that are familiar with the area. And tell me your thoughts. I'm going to try to get in here on the live stream comments. There it is. It's finally uploaded. It's loading here on my phone to read these. Check out what you guys think. But if you do enjoy what we're doing here, do me at least a favor and like, comment, and share what we're doing here. So, Sam, how you doing, brother? I got a bunch of comments coming in here, and let me get a better grip here on my camera beam because it does wear out the hand a little bit as you continue here. So let's see what we got. Nicholas says Trump 2020. Chris Hux, Trump 2020. Kristen Allison, Trump. Sam Sumati, Trump. Sean Galuski, Trump. Huckster Warner, Trump. Well, so far, it's all Trump. But you guys, if you're enjoying what we're talking about, do me a favor. Share this particular post, this live stream, if you will, and get a little bit out there. I'm going to continue on. I can show you guys. We'll turn a little bit here. Give you guys a shot. Here's the mobile on the run gas station behind me. If you guys know where I'm at, we're up here at upper bottom and the page extension. And yeah, things are working out nicely here as far as our live stream. Got a recreational parks. If I kept walking, I would end up getting up to the bridge here that goes over the Missouri River. It divides South County from St. Charles County. And with that, let's keep a up here as we walk around. We're going to go towards St. Charles a little bit. And tell me your guys' thoughts. So far, it's been all Trump in our survey here. But what I really need for you guys to do is share this post a little bit. Share it out to some of your friends. Put it on your page, if you will. There's a lot to discuss here. Let's talk about some of the issues, if we can, real quick. Many people do know what's at stake. We have, obviously, a lot of leaders that are trying to gain their perspective power, to represent their constituents. And then we've got those that are obviously preaching what they believe is going to help the long-term effects for the country. And you gotta find that equilibrium somewhere in between, right? And what can we do to best serve our country, our constituents, our citizens, right? Because the older we get, the further along we get along this way, in this little planet, with this little experiment we call the United States of America. By now, we've been doing this for a couple hundred years, and probably one of the most interesting things I see that people have designated. As a matter of, everybody tries to, as best they can, get into this country, right? They want to. Everybody's trying to get into the United States. You know, everybody's trying to sneak in to this country. If it's such a terrible place, with all that's unfair, why is it everybody's doing so, I guess, is my biggest question. Why do so many people try to get here? And the people that talk about how terrible it is that live here, why do they stay here? Nobody's making them stay, right? Anybody out there with me on that? I mean, we literally, I'm going to walk across here. I should get the green light. You see cars are coming this way. But why, if it's such a terrible place? And I kind of want to sides a little bit with the fact that, you know, there's just a lot of people, they do want to get power. They do like the influence that comes with power, right? Power is influence. And that they can, with that, gain some happiness and some wealth. Well, if you're going to aspire to such things, then you definitely need to do things that help everybody, not just you, or else it's always going to be short-term lived, right? And that's where you kind of get a divergence, and you start to figure out, are they really helping people, or are they lining their own pockets? And that's happened. A lot of people argue on both sides of the fence, right? Both sides argue that, and we're going right underneath the page extension here. I'll show you guys if you can see the sign up there. You can see it, you probably can't see it, but that's obviously there's a big overpass on top of me here, going over me. But that's literally what this is all about. And how do we best serve this so that it doesn't collapse? I think that's my biggest concern, because if it collapses because we haven't been able to find a way to sustain it in the interest of everyone, then nobody's got anything, right? It's kind of like they say, you better take, can you guys hear me? Echo, echo, echo. Out here in St. Charles, normally you see parts of the country, you'll see some homeless people underneath here, but I don't see any here. But you're getting to where you've got to sustain this thing. They argue that every country that has ever tried capitalism, has ever tried democracy, ultimately collapses under its own weight, because the people in power realize they can vote themselves or gain the votes by promising other people stuff that they can give away, that they can give redistribution, if they would. Robin Hood, a lot of people talk about. I don't know, a lot of people realize the essential essence of the story about Robin Hood was that, yeah, it was a great theory, because there was a dictatorial leadership in a king, and the king didn't take too much care of his peasants, so you're getting a lot of revolt when you got that. But when you've got people, now they've kind of figured this thing out. If you let people provide for themselves, a lot of people do get the opportunity to produce and create a lot of wealth for themselves. But what's the side effect of that? Is the side effect of all that prosperity for others, or for themselves, or for everybody? And I think that's where we're kind of at with this thing, because there's a lot of people out there who are going, huh, if my boss gets taxed like crazy, he ends up shutting it down. If they give tax benefits to other countries, this is what happened. This is why I argue the whole InBev thing. A lot of people from St. Louis know that InBev came in and bought out Anheuser-Busch. One of the key elements to that takeover was the fact that the tax rate that was given, it wasn't the normal tax rate. I even investigated this a bit more to find out the normal tax rate for the country that they moved their headquarters to. They moved the headquarters for what was called InBev from Brazil over to a little country in Europe. Does anybody know what country that was? Well, that country was given a tax break to, check my numbers on this, but given a tax break for a lower corporate tax break to InBev if they move their headquarters over there. And in doing so, they save the companies. You go from a tax rate that the United States had gone up to, at the time I believe it was 28%, and they gave them 15%, or maybe it was 25, and take it down to 17. You're talking between 8 and 13% difference, 12% difference. Well, on $56 billion, that's a lot of money. You're going to have a lot of companies that are going to move their headquarters, therefore move a lot of their employees to a different country, because it's going to save them. That's a heck of a bonus. Somebody just take 10% of 56 billion. That's $5.6 billion that they get to keep in their pocket. So that's one of the issues you got to watch out for when people say, oh, we're going to raise the corporate tax level. Well, that's cool, except if all the jobs that your company now you're going to be able to tax on the profits that they have, those jobs all go somewhere else, and you lose everything. 100% of nothing is zero, right? And so a lot of people don't really talk much about that or realize what they say when they're saying, oh, we're going to give tax rate benefit, we're going to raise our taxes. Well, cool, except that the problem is we're not the only country on the planet. And so when you've got incentives, if you will, that are going to let other companies say, hey man, we're trying to make a profit. That's what drives business. That's what allows these employees we have to have jobs. So that's one of the big issues right now that they're talking about with the tax increases that And I would argue that InBev may not have taken over Anheuser-Busch, and I'd be working for Anheuser-Busch still, had InBev not taken them over, had the tax bracket been bumped up by Barack Obama. That was in 2008. That takeover happened in 2008. And coincidence? I think not. Let's talk about some of the other issues. A lot of people, the COVID obviously is something that most people do get a little wound up about. And obviously it's been a very dramatic issue that's affected a lot of people. One of the most recent stats that came out that I would argue most people have not seen, most likely so far, is the fact that they're now saying, I believe the number was 130,000 of the 220,000 cases they went back and reviewed, only to find out that 130,000 of those 220 so far, 230 almost, so were actually pneumonia, heart disease, and the flu, not COVID. But they gave quite an incentive. Your hospital got paid quite a bit more money if they could pull off the diagnosis for the cause of death to be COVID. Well, that's all about the money again, corruption, right? And some would argue. And so when you've got people that are dying, but they're being miscalculated, I mean, how hard is one party run with the fact that, oh my gosh, there's 220,000 people? Well, first off, even at 220,000, that's bad, but there are many other diseases that cause many more deaths. When they were talking 2.2 million, yeah, that was a lot of deaths. But that wasn't anywhere close to what we got. Trump actually did a pretty good job if you start to analyze what was going on versus what they predicted and then how he responded to it. But man, the mainstream media does not like to report things, especially like this latest revelation that, I'm gonna put this back on the title for the Trump, that, wow, 130,000 of those were not actually at all to do with, COVID, or other causes. Well, man, if you're going to run around scaring the hell out of everybody, telling everybody that 220,000, which a lot of people think that's such a huge number, well, it's a high number, but it's not nearly as bad as it is comparatively. You know, there's 160,000 people who die every year in accidents, not necessarily just car accidents, but there's a lot of causes, a lot of accidents that happen. Train, car's a big, major cause, but there's more people dying, especially now that you cut out that 130,000. Then you take out the fact that of the remaining 100,000, they argue that it's been proven that most of the people who died that shouldn't have, a larger chunk of that, they argue 42%. Was it 40% of the big number or smaller number? But 42% is a good chunk of people that were sent to, they sent the sickest people that were infected with COVID to go live with the most vulnerable back in the nursing homes. Who does that? Who does that? You've got to be insane. But that was the theory they thought about. Oh, we can't keep people. Nobody in their right mind would do that unless they had some kind of nefarious ulterior motive or something else. They just weren't thinking straight. And I'd say that's a pretty big error to not be thinking straight. So you start adding it up. The COVID issue has really become almost a misnomer, almost an asterisk when you really, in terms of the overall mortality and how many people have died and the actual impact it has had from a straight up death total, which is just a harsh way of looking at it. But if you look at the impact it's had much more seriously on our economy, and this is where I get pretty fired up and talk to people about, do you realize that at least an additional, every year, how many people know this? Every year, on average, sometimes a little higher, sometimes a little lower, has a lot to do with the economy, 40,000 people commit suicide in the United States. 40,000 commit suicide. That number will at least double, or already has at least doubled. They are getting 6 times as many phone calls to the suicide help support lines. And by now, we also, there's 40,000. Well, heck, we're down to 100,000. We got half of them, half more are going to be caused that they're not going to attribute to, sorry to commit, maybe they have, contribute to this battery pack is a little heavy. It's a little mini battery, but it's fairly heavy. Batteries are always heavy, right? And so there's at least another 60,000 they're arguing now that are going to die from, I better stay on my path over, go back over that way. We're going to walk through the neighborhood back to the house. We can get a few different ways we get there. Another 60,000 that are going to die from drug overdoses and alcohol abuse. And there's a lot of people die from that every year already, but there's going to be an increase, an additional 60,000. Well, that didn't have to die. Well, you combine the number of suicides and the number of drug overdoses that are being added to the total that didn't have to be if they wouldn't have destroyed the economy, and unrightfully so. If you really analyze it now, it's hard to look back. Hindsight is 2020, but wow, you matched your total right there, and that's if you don't count the people that they sent to nursing homes. My great aunt and somebody else close to the family both died that way. They had comorbidities as well, but that's a different discussion. So now you're at 100,000 right there. Then you throw in the people that didn't get medical treatments, that needed them but couldn't because they were saying every other treatment has got to be put on hold. Cancer treatments, anything related to heart disease and failures had to be put on hold. And now those people that didn't get treated are going to die or have died because they didn't get the treatment that they needed. And that adds about another 70,000. And then when you throw on top of that malnutrition, and I didn't realize until I studied this, but malnutrition is one of the largest causes of death still in the United States. Not because people die so often from not getting the proper food, but it leads to the other causes of death, which include heart failure, which has a lot to do with issues with blood flow and arteries and not eating the right kind of food or not getting enough food. And so when you add it all together, probably another 100,000 there, you're looking at 200, what do we get? You get 70, 60, 40, that's 170 plus another, you get about 270,000 on the low end that are going to be, that will have died from the, remember they talk about this, you cannot make the cure worse than the disease itself. And in this case, it's much worse. It's at least a little bit worse, and that's if you start analyzing these numbers that the CDC actually reported. They talked about 130,000 of these deaths after they reviewed them, found out that they were actually died from the normal flu, which kills anywhere from 40 to 60,000 a year. They actually died from pneumonia, which has been around forever, and from heart failure. What? Kind of crazy, huh? Well, that's where you got to start to analyze what the heck's really going on here. Why would people want to make this thing sound a lot worse than it really is? Who benefits from that? Well, the people that are saying, hey, we should be doing this instead of the people who are, right? It's an argument for gaining power. And when you really analyze it, and again, I don't take any particular side, I just always am arguing for what's best for all of us, and especially those of us who are informed, right? Most people don't have time, okay? Let's just say they don't have time to become fully informed. And so by now, the media has done a good job of just taking whatever startling information they can throw out in front of somebody and putting it on the TV without giving a full explanation or all the details. And the one that's probably getting me most worked up most recently is, I think I said the other day, now we're up to 90,000 new cases yesterday or the other day. 90,000 new cases. Well, have they talked about how many actual deaths there are as a result of these cases? Well, the death rate used to be a lot higher, but now we've effectively got a treatment. Dr. Naputi, a number of other doctors, some I won't name, that I know personally, that I've had in my studio, talk about the fact that they effectively know. I mean, how quickly did the president recover from this? Right? He had it for essentially about 4 days, it seemed, that he was really just down and out. Like I said, it was a couple days where he was not out working for us like he does so often, running around the country helping keep us all in line, get us back to a true sense of democracy. But wow, the actual number of people that do not survive is so low compared to where it started. And it was low anyway when you actually analyze the numbers. They were talking 8-10% mortality rate. Well, 8-10% mortality rate is a fairly high rate, but not compared to other people who get other diseases. Some people, you go down the list of diseases that if you get it, you're going to die. The mortality rate's 60, 70, 80, 90%. Ebola is one that comes to mind, and they finally come up with a way to better manage Ebola. It happened a number of years ago. But look at the numbers and understand where we're at with all of this and the truth about where we're at, and not the shocking stuff that they try to get to people. And this is where I get back to the information people have been kept from having, because the media reports the most shocking thing that does get someone's attention, but they don't go into depth, because we're talking about a mortality rate that's now 0.5% if you're over the age of 50, 0.02% if you're under the age of 50. I mean, it's insane how low these mortality rates have fallen after they realize that whoever concocted, or if this thing happened naturally, it's not nearly as deadly as they would like to lead you to believe. And by now they're having people, you've got to wear a mask everywhere. You've got to get tested before you can go into some facilities and do certain things. Well, fine, if that's going to be the case, then we need to start testing everybody for everything, because they can transmit a disease. And there's tons of diseases out there that right now we hardly make any inference towards. But we know they kill people. But because of the hype that's been created here, it gets to be nuts. And then we get into the topic with regard to masks. And I really think the president has finally just submitted to the fact that he's just going to take it for what they've made it, and that it is. I am at the end of the curb. There's a little walk across over here. That just wear the masks. They don't really have any impact in stopping much. I would argue they have a minor impact. They obviously will keep you from straight up spitting in somebody's eye, or I don't know anybody that when they sneeze, they lean over to sneeze in somebody's face. So that one's kind of no, that wouldn't make sense. It was ridiculous. But there is the accidental spit in somebody's eye, which is more likely than into their mouth, but or up their nose, right? So, and then the mask you wear doesn't cover your eyes. 90%, 95% of the people you see wearing masks are actually wearing masks to cover their eyes, rarely, if ever. So that does you no good. And so then, okay, there is a minute chance, and I remember, I can count on one hand how many times I go, oh, I got spit in the eye. And it's just a matter of what they call a gleek, right? That little dot of spit. It wasn't like somebody went and spit in somebody's face. It's just when they talk, a little bit of saliva does get transferred periodically, and every once in a while, and I can count, like, so I remember 4 times in my life that I kind of, because I remember, because I was like, oh, you got me. And they, they'll say, oh, they're sorry, or maybe they didn't notice it. I mean, you don't even bring it up because it's never been such a concern. But now it's a big deal. And so there is the potential that does happen. Like I said, 4 times I can recall. Maybe it's happening more than I realize, right? Because when I get a dot of, you get anything in your eye, you tend to feel it and respond to it, right? So I doubt that. Big bird over here. How you doing, buddy? What's going on? So, but I think it's counteracted with regard to what kind of difference it makes, because now people are touching their noses much more often, and even as natural, people touch their nose between 16 and 23 times in an hour. That's without a mask. It's caused more. And either way, you're going to be touching your nose. That's when you transfer these these germs to your hands. And that's going to happen whether you're wearing a mask or not. But either way, now you're transferring to a doorknob. But you would not have near as many germs to transfer, except that you're harvesting them all inside on your face with a mask. Why would you do that? Let's just think logically here for a minute. That's just insane. But people are doing it, and then they feel better about themselves. And I've had people tell me, they're like, oh my gosh, my kids' masks, they're just coated with, well, you know what it's coated with, it's terrible. But that's just the way. And the people, they prey on ignorance, they prey on shock value, and they don't really step back to analyze the true effects of what's really going on here. And it just drives me crazy, because they're really shocking the heck out of our country, bringing down an economy. How many people know this, but I've studied it. Our economy, our GDP, I have to look up the numbers again, but I know it's about 5.3 times larger than the number 2 country in the world. The number 2 country in the world, which has moved up the ranks relatively quickly in the last couple decades. The number 2 country in the world, we have 5.3 times the GDP of China. They have 1.6 billion people. Some people say 2 billion people. They have death camps that they send people off to. China, just give me a break. But horrible country for some of the stuff that they do. It's inhumane. And they cheat and they steal and they take technology and they manipulate and they spy and all that stuff. Make deals with politicians after being in office for 47 years. And so here we are. And we've let our economy be shut down. only as a means. I mean, I think they miscalculated because their economy got affected by it also. Maybe this wasn't done intentionally, but whatever, it was exploited for sure. And now we're trying to recover when we shouldn't even be in a position where we have to recover for something like this. But it should not have been pushed down as far as it was. And if you look at people saying Trump messed this up, Trump was not running the cities. He gave the cities the right, as they should, to manage this catastrophe, this pandemic, the way they wanted to. You know, that's the way our government works. The federal government takes care of the big issues and mandates as necessary to come down, but they're all allowed to handle things individually because we are all sovereign, independent states run inside this United States of America. And some of these, and doing so, they let these cities in particular and states make terrible decisions and killed a lot of people. And if they'd have followed suit with the other means to keep this from being such a travesty, it would have been not nearly as many people die. And it just blows my mind with how they then somehow construe this as if the president messed these things up. And it's just like, all you have to do is look at it for a little bit. Most of these deaths came from New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia, and Michigan, all in the major metropolitan cities, which are managed by Democrats. And so, I'm not throwing stones against anybody in particular. I'm saying, but look who's in charge. Let's just be honest. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, let's just see what happened and why did it go that way. And then you got to start to ask yourself, why are they continuing to let these kinds of things happen in a fashion that they have? Who benefits from this? Well, then you start to really begin to understand, I think, what's going on. And I would say it's pretty obvious that we're going to see here in the next 48 hours. A lot of people have figured it out. A lot of people still are wondering what the heck is going on. And they think that without analyzing it, without any analysis, they're going, oh, I just believe the media. And they tell me that the president messed this up, and I just go with that. And I go, hey, man, you got to study this a little bit. You can't be uninformed to the point that you don't have a good decision you can make. But this happens all the time, right? That's why some people are always broke, and some people are always successful. Why is that? Who would you choose to follow as your leader? Somebody that and that's why I say it's not really hard for most people. I don't know about, the necessity for one particular party. Here we go. We got some. There's a few strong opinions here in the neighborhood. Some of the signs that we've got around here. But I mean, you just got to look at like who benefits the most and who's the happiest, who helps the most people. And when it comes down to it, it's really just got to be a pretty easy thing to figure out. Here's a method that you have that it seems like these guys are always controlling the people that they say they're helping. And these people are saying, well, do it yourself. It ain't going to be easy, but you're going to have a much more full sense of pride and accomplishment and responsibility and dignity that the other side doesn't allow. They say they do, but they just never actually do. And it just becomes very obvious to me, and I think most people who dig in a little bit understand that. But there's always going to be enough people who say, hey, I'm going to promise free stuff so that I can get votes. And it really is frightening. And it's been done forever, not just in the United States. So this is where we're at. We've got to kind of figure it out, or we're going to end up in a situation where these freedoms are all taken from us. And the good news is, either way, we're ultimately going to win, I believe. Because the truth is, as a matter of humanity, and this is the first time in the history of the world on a systematic, continuous level, freedom has been promoted and acknowledged and offered for such a long period of time. And what they figured out, again, I've talked about this a number of times. If people listen to my show, I talk about sports, I talk about being competitive, I talk about overcoming adversity, I talk about believing in yourself, I talk about never giving up. And those are all things I learned from sports. And those are the things that got me through my coma, right? My coma. A lot of people don't know that. I was in a coma back when I was 19 years old. This is 4 or 5 years ago, or more. And the truth is, they portrayed me and tried to even develop me back into being a victim. Oh, he's not going to be able to take care of himself. He's not gonna... And if I'd have listened to them, that's the way it would have been. But I jumped back and said, I'm going back to school. When? Next semester? No, next week. And I was in a coma for a week. I sat out for another week, and I was back at school. And I believe that's because of my desire to be free and to be happy and accomplished. And that's what all of us have in this country. We talked about Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations. If you really study, finally somebody came up with the concept. If you let people create for themselves, do for themselves, and create things that help other people, then we all benefit from that. But as soon as you start taking that away from people, you take away their rights to create, you take away their rights to benefit, you take away their rights to become successful and happy and even wealthy. Now you just destroyed the opportunity that everyone else has that benefits from the products and the jobs that those people would have created. And if you really think about it, because I know a lot of wealthy people, I've done very well with my consulting business, and you get to know these people. Nobody's particularly happy having millions of dollars. That makes life a little easier, but the true happiness comes from being able to help somebody. Happiness comes from being able to do what's right, to feel like you've contributed. That's why so many more people, they don't make millions of dollars, but they donate a lot of time. They help people at charities, they help people at schools, they help people at church. They become teachers, doctors, do well, but they can become nurses. They become, who don't make millions of dollars, right? They become firemen, policemen, policewomen. And they do this because it makes them feel good because they've helped somebody. And that's just the way God made it. And so I think ultimately, back to what I was saying, is that we're going to end up with a situation where if they do strike for a certain period of time, to take away a lot of our liberties and our rights to be happy and our rights to contribute and do what makes the world a better place and offer means to help others and create exciting things and come up with new innovations because they have incentives to do so. If they take that away, it won't be long before they demand to have it back. Because I've heard this argument from one of my most knowledgeable mentors that said, once you've given a handout, once you've given a government subsidy, whatever you give away, expect that you're not going to be able to take it back. Right? You can't give out a subsidy, a handout, a government distribution, and then be able to take it away. And I said, I think that is true. And it ends up entrapping people, keeping them stuck. But the truth is, and we're about to finish up our walk here. We just walked about 2 or 3 miles, I think. We'll get somewhere. I'll figure that out some other time. The important part is we got to finish the message. We got to get the word out. We got to tell people what's going on. And that is what's equally hard to do. As we finally have figured out on this little planet, and it took some time to get to this point. But what we had to do is we had to figure out that if you give people freedom, that also is very hard to take away. And that's why you see rallies like the ones we've seen here in the last few weeks, and just here in St. Louis, St. Charles. There are a ton of people showing up because they want to protect and defend not their money, not their government handouts, not the means that there are to control people. They want to protect their freedom. Because freedom is what God gave us, and that's what makes us happy. And if you give people freedom and the means to produce for themselves and to help other people along the way, then you've got a whole society that works together. But as soon as you start to develop a culture and a society where the controls and the means are controlled by those at the top, they very often end up giving the control and the means to the people around them. And it doesn't get to the people who need it, and it collapses. So I hope they realize this, because it's pretty obvious. And you've seen this happen because this is what happened to Russia. This is what Soviet Union, I should say. It's now become Russia, and they're still kind of trying to figure it out over there. But Cuba, Venezuela. But there's a list of about 24 countries, all of which have tried socialism. Not one success. And if you just analyze it, any common sense, you begin to realize the reason it doesn't work is because you've taken away the incentive for somebody to try to prosper. Because they must all get paid the same no matter who does more work or not. So then no one wants to do any more work. And then no progress is made. And eventually nothing gets done, and then it collapses because there's nowhere to take money from, right? Capitalism provides an incentive. Communism, as Margaret Thatcher said, it's great to be able to give other people's money away until you run out of other people's money to give away. And that's kind of where we're at. And I think it's what's on the ballot here for this next election. And the only reason I still adamantly believe that is because I've studied the history of the different cultures and political factions that have existed on our little planet here. And ultimately, you've got to get to where you do provide people independence. We have a Declaration of Independence. You know, the thing, right? Is that the quote that we had there? But that's what keeps humans happy, humans proliferating, humans competitive. And then, you know, there's a lot of people who don't want to pump out a $200 million business and create so many jobs. But they benefit from all those who do, because it gives them an opportunity to have a great place to live. And everybody's trying to get into this country. Everybody wants to live in America. Why is that? We figured it out, ladies and gents. It took a revolution to break away from England and to come over to the Newfoundland, the New World. And so here we are. And now we're potentially going to squander it, because there's never ending battle. This is what I'm talking about. The history shows that ultimately, you name them, Genghis Khan, Mussolini, Hitler, Brezhnev, I mean, there's a long, Napoleon, Alexander the Great. They all had one method in mind, and it wasn't to politely conquer. It was to conquer and control, and it never ever lasted, ever. Finally, we've got a situation where people are clamoring to get into the country because they know that's the land of prosperity, and we can keep it going, and we can spread it from here on out for the rest of humanity, as long as no one ever gets so self-absorbed that they think that they should be so powerful and control it all, which they never will be able to do, not in a fair way, unless they're giving everybody equal opportunity, equal rights to benefit themselves. Because as soon as you misrepresent that or take advantage, then somebody's getting taken advantage of, and then the means collapse, and then it falls apart, and then you end up with an unfair system. And it's never going to be 100% fair, but as long as the core ideals and incentives are in place, you'll be able to do so. So that's where we're at right now. I think it's critical, and I say, like, I've studied. If you just read a little bit about the book by Saul Alinsky called Rules for Radicals, and it's very clear they are many in the world are following the playbook written as to how to implement socialism. And I don't know why you'd ever want to, because they have must have such a narrow, short-term perspective to even try to implement it, because yes, it can put you in power very quickly as a matter of 1 term or 2 terms or an election, like they did with Chavez down in Venezuela, or as you saw, seen as what's happened in Cuba with Castro, and then we know all about the leaders in the Soviet Union. But ultimately, I'm going to go across over here to the other side, because this is back to where we're going. Ultimately, those guys, they didn't live well. They didn't come across as like caring, loving people that everybody wanted to be around. They wanted to escape from these people. So why would you ever want to become a leader like this? Because you come down as a villain, and there's no benefit to that. So get it screwed on straight. All you people who want to control the world and take over and hand out benefits to everybody so that you can take over their lives, you're not going to be happy anyway. What are you doing this for? It doesn't work. It gives you a short-term method towards power, but it ultimately collapses, and you end up being known as the villain, as the dictator. Who wants to be known as such? It doesn't create happiness. So ladies and gents, look out for your brother, look out for your sister, look out for those who can benefit from our system that helps everybody benefit together. Even the ones who don't want to work, even the ones who don't want to contribute, they still can ride the coattails, and somebody's still going to help take care of them. But ultimately, if there's no resource to benefit everyone, and no means to generate the revenue and the resources, it collapses. And that's a matter of basic logic for the way this little system. Maybe it's different in other planets around the world. Maybe it's different. Maybe it's better in other places around the world. Yep, still going, James. I appreciate you guys all being tuned in tonight. We'll share this stream out a little bit. I wanted to focus on testing our method here and how long we've gone with the stream. But I've got a laptop strapped to me right here. Where you can see this little power pack on the back. That's just a little mini, it's like a mini car battery. And this laptop sitting in front of me. There's our stream coming out with it right there. And then I've got a selfie stick holding, and then I can use my phone on the other, right here, right? So let's get the the good message out. Use some logic and explain to your friends who don't understand this because they say, oh, I think this is great and I should get everything free. Then what are you going to do when it collapses? They don't realize what's been taken from them. They don't realize what's being done to them. And ultimately, it's going to cause a very unhappy situation for a lot of people. And we've got a big decision here to make in the next 48 hours. So we're really looking forward to what we can do to help this little planet get out the message to the rest of the world that depends on us. Because if we don't get the word out, we don't keep it going here, we have the potential to fall back into tyranny, which is what has pretty much ruled the world since inception and has caused for a lot of tumult and discontent and unhappiness on our planet. I think we had a great leader at one point named Jesus Christ who said, do unto others as you want undone to you, right? Done unto you. Turn the other cheek, but at the same time, you've got to stand up for what's right. And I'll finish with, if you get to a situation where you've got the opportunity granted you to do what's right, and someone says, take with you these 10 tithes and produce what you can in the name of the person who gave it to you. This is the parable of the 3 sons, right? And they said, one son took the tithes and went out and invested it and built a business with it and turned around and doubled his money. The other son took it and put it in a safe storage area, and you guys can look this up, where at least was kept and did gain a little bit of interest. The last son buried it underneath a mound of dirt or in a pillar in the ground or underneath his bed or whatever it was, and did not use it to help prosper and benefit. That ultimately turns into benefit for everyone. And so you can figure out really quickly what works best, and it was said in the Bible. And I'm not to say that I'm a big Bible preacher, but the truth is, if we're going to do what benefits us on this little planet as a whole, for all people to benefit from, because as soon as that money gets gained and the people that have had it become prosperous, it gets cycled and they pass on and they give it to their kids, who usually blow it. At least it's all been creating revenue that we all can benefit from because of the prosperity that's been granted to those who can use it. So that's what we need to do more of. And I think that's where a lot of people will end up seeing that if you're going to help our little planet, you've got to keep this little thing. Now they call it capitalism. And it is all that we have learned ultimately does give the best response, reciprocal effort for those who live on this little planet. And I get it that it's not an easy way to go. It's not a fast and quick and easy, but it is ultimately what benefits all of us the most. So again, I appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to start sharing this out a little bit like we had been doing earlier, but kind of got onto our message there. And we want everybody to understand what's going on and what we have on this little planet, and we hopefully don't let it get taken from us. And I know a lot of people think, oh, this is an oversight, I'm exaggerating. But if you just study the path and you look at what's going on, and it's slowly, incrementally being taken away, that's what's really going on here. And there's just many people that I believe don't see it and don't understand how long it's been under siege as a matter of just doing it. People don't know any better. What they've done historically throughout the history of our planet, it's just another method for them to try to take away the one time we've developed something that does benefit everybody. But it doesn't benefit them because they didn't want to work so hard. They didn't want to start a business. They didn't want to create opportunity. They'll just take the shortcut, promise a bunch of free things, and get a bunch of votes in return. And that's pretty sad because it ends up collapsing everything. All so that they can get a short-term run at power and control that they're going to have to look back and say, man, do you believe those evil people who did this to us that caused this whole thing to collapse? And that's not what any one of us want to see, because it's the first time in our country's history, in our world's history, that we've had such a beneficial, prosperous opportunity for everyone. So, all right, everybody, we appreciate you guys tuning in. A lot of comments, a lot of great feedback, and we appreciate what you guys work for, stand for, and keep going for it, ladies and gents. This is not something that we should take lightly. This is not something that people will willfully give away unless they don't understand what's at stake. So if you want to have the opportunity to keep it going for our kids and our kids' kids, our grandkids, then you need to focus on what it is here that we have and keep it going, because And history would show that anybody has the opportunity to take away power, take away, to give to somebody else, for their own nefarious short-term benefit, they do, unless they're stopped. And so this is our opportunity to stop it again for the benefit of humanity. I think we're at a point now where we can see that the future benefits everyone best by doing as such, making people earn a living, making people contribute, making people provide and be part of the system that helps others and help those that need the help the most. But we've got to do that best right now, and this Tuesday is a huge opportunity. So I wanted to get this video out, and I got to do it with my 100% portable unit here, and so we're going to keep this going, and we hope that everybody, if you would, please take a moment to share, like, comment, and share again, because this message I think is important. This isn't all from the mind of the Cardinal Cowboy. This is some pretty obvious stuff that most people about 50% of the population doesn't understand, right? Doesn't understand, because if they did, they would never vote the way that they do, and they would study it further to realize what's really going on. 50% of the population does get it, but that 50% that does get it needs to take a little time, a little effort, a little energy to spread this out to the rest of the world who doesn't quite get it. And it's up to us. I mean, if we don't want to spend the time to do so, obviously we know what's going to happen, and we've seen it happen in other countries. A lot of people think it may not be happening here, at least not anytime soon, but it could happen a lot more quickly than most people realize. It happened very quickly in Venezuela. It happened not too long ago in Cuba, and we saw what happened in the Soviet Union. And there's a long list of other countries. If you want to dig in, do a search for the history of socialist countries. You know what's going on in North Korea, but it's a matter of keeping it from going any further in our country. Do we need to help people? Absolutely, but you don't help people by giving them something. You don't help people by attributing them a handout. You help somebody by teaching them, right? Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. And I think just so many people need to help understand that and to get that word out. So take a little time on your own for a minute to reach out and make a difference and share the message, because it is a matter of, yeah, we're all busy. Yeah, we all have other things we need to do. We all have important things that are affecting us right now. But the truth is, if you're not going to take a little bit of time to help somebody understand the way the system works for the benefit of all of us, then it can very quickly collapse on all of us. And that's what not any of us want to see. So with that, I appreciate you guys tuning in, listening to the Cardinal Cowboy Show. You know, we want to keep bringing this message out, sharing our perspective. And if anybody disagrees, I'll gladly sit down with them. It's very often I offer that, and so many times it's interesting. I offer somebody the opposite. Well, then let's sit down and talk about it. And they all say, no, I can't do that. I'm afraid to, because they know their argument is weak, and ultimately I'm going to be able to prove to them I'm not here to be right or wrong. I'm here to do what's best and share with everyone what's obvious that most of the people recognize is most effective means to help make this world a better place. And if we just would take the time and spread that just a little bit to the rest of the world, we can all benefit from it long term. There's a lot of people who laid their lives down, and I want to give a shout out finally to the men or our veterans who have laid their life down, who have put it all out there, also that we can have and enjoy this freedom on this little planet. Because had it not been for those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, none of this would be possible, and we would all be sitting in a much more harsh, difficult situation where we can't enjoy the true freedoms that we have because of those who did lay down their lives with the ultimate sacrifice. So thanks again to all of our military veterans, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and all the reserves and the police officers and the paramedics and all of those firefighters and everybody that does an incredible job supporting this little planet and what we've got going on here. So we want to give a shout out to all of them, and without you guys, again, I would not be here. I would not be alive to this day if it weren't for some people that pulled me out of a horrible accident, rushed me to the hospital where I went into a coma, and then saved my life only so that I could come out of my coma 7 days later. And when they said that I wasn't going to be able to take care of myself, we went on and proved it wrong, the experts wrong, that I could, and those that were there to support me helped me make that possible. And it was with great adulation and appreciation that really was the way I survived and what I came out, and why I have such great appreciation. So we appreciate it again, everybody, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. And with that, have a great weekend and get out there and vote on Tuesday, everybody. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon. Giddy up.
This is the Cardinal Cowboy Show.
Giddy!